Which players are we staying completely away from in our dynasty leagues? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Matt Williamson. Go follow him on Twitter at Williamson NFL. And on today's show, we're taking a look at a handful of players that we're just completely out in our dynasty leagues. We're going to be a lot lower than these guys based on their ADPs. And let's start, Matt, with some, I called them low-end RB1s, but if you look at our ADP, they're not really low-end. They're kind of like mid-range RB1s. But let's start with Kyren Williams. I know you're not the biggest fan of Kyren. Why is that?
Well, first off, I think the Rams and coaches alike adore him. I mean, that was the thing with him coming out of Notre Dame. Team captain, does all the little things, blocks, doesn't fumble, and I think McVay and the Rams are very much in that camp as well. And they gave him money. So all those things don't speak well for fading Kyren Williams. That being said, they've drafted a running back every year McVay's been the head coach. And and they're all kind of replaceable type talents, Corum and guys like that, including the rookie this year. And I've just never owned him. I don't think he's very talented. He's not very big. I think he gets by on grit and vision and things like that. And what's a good offense? I'm just not paying his price, and I never really have. And I can't see him lasting long in this league, to be honest with you.
That's where I struggle with Kyren Williams as well. I've had him on several of my dynasty teams, and he puts up a lot of fantasy points. But when you compare him, the talent compared to Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs or Saquon Barkley or Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, I mean, you know the names, all the guys that he's being drafted around. He's just not of that caliber. And you're always concerned that Sean McVay is going to have a wandering eye, and all of a sudden he's going to fall in love with Jarquez Hunter for a month, and Kyren just doesn't play.
It's possible, or they're an aggressive organization. They trade for Breece Hall or Travis Etienne or something at the trade deadline. Not that Etienne's a superstar or anything, but maybe they go all in and get a more dynamic player there. He just seems like a very short-term player to me, although the signs indicate that they love him.
Yeah, it sure seems like they are going to pay him a big contract here in the next few weeks. One of the guys I want to talk about is Breece Hall.
It's a tough one.
Unlike Kyren, I do think Breece Hall is a really good player. So that's not the issue for me. The issue is I don't like this Jets offense. I don't like that it's a new coaching staff. Once again, if you look at success rate for a running back, which I know is not the end-all, be-all, Matt, but he is second to last over the last 3 years among all qualified running backs. Like, he just has not been particularly efficient. He's in the last year of his deal. He already has a major knee injury to start his career. He's being ranked as RB6, and I just can't get there.
At that price, yes, I tend to agree. I think he's like a third or fourth round startup or daily. Yeah, what am I talking about? Redraft.
Redraft.
Right. Brain fart there for a minute. I don't think he's a top 2-round player like he was a year ago. Catches the ball though. I think the O-line is going the right direction, going tackle, and I think the interior is okay. I don't think Fields is the answer, but I do think a running quarterback could help him. I think that he's going to get touches, but I'm probably not buying him at his price. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about here. There's a price you would take him, of course.
I value him more in the RB12, RB13, 14 range. I'll give you an example. I don't think there's all that big of a difference between James Cook and Breece Hall right now, but one is RB14 and the other is RB6 right now. James Cook is in the last year of his deal. He's on a much better offense. He scores a bunch of touchdowns. That's the thing about Breece Hall. Because this offense has been so bad over the last 3 years, there's just not a lot of touchdown potential. And I just don't know if that's going to change anytime soon.
I actually almost considered putting Cook on the list just because I don't think he can ever match that touchdown total.
Probably not.
And I don't know that he'll be in Buffalo next year. Are they just going to be like, I'm not paying you, we'll just draft somebody?
Well, which is fine. I just, to me, those guys should be ranked similar. The fact that in a startup draft, you have to draft Breece Hall in the 3rd round. No thanks.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I do think they're very similar in value too.
Yeah.
Do you think Hall will be a Jet?
No.
You don't? Yeah.
Well, you look at this contract situation for the Jets. They have Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Sauce Gardner, Elijah Vera-Tucker. Just have a bunch of guys they've got to pay, and they're already paying a bunch of players on this team. I just don't know.
That was the year they had the 3 first-round picks. So,
yes,
that could be
I just don't know with. It sounds like Aaron Glenn said they're going to use a running back by committee approach anyways. Why would you give Breece Hall $15-16 million a year if you are going to be using more running backs?
I do think Braylon Allen needs to be discussed too. I mean, I think he's not even just turned 21 or something crazy too. I was never super impressed with him, but the last staff seemed to like him. And if they are going to go committee, he could certainly eat into Hall's, production for sure.
I'm going to give you one more running back just really quickly.
Okay.
Joe Mixon, RB20 right now. I hate that Houston offensive line. I think Mixon looked incredibly slow last year. I mean, I understand when he's out there, he's going to get a lot of work, but I would just much rather take a chance on some of those running backs like Tyrone Tracy or name your guy, Bishop too,
younger,
in that range.
Right.
Over Mixon. I just think we're getting really close to the end here.
You're probably right. And if we did this 365 days ago, he was at the top of my list because I really thought his last year in Cincy was bad. I thought he had bad tape or looked pretty shot, like you said, pretty slow. I know they made massive O-line changes in Houston and coordinator changes, but I don't know if they're better up front on paper. I mean, I don't think they are. Maybe schematically they're better.
They also traded a 2026 3rd-round pick to go get Woody Marks. I mean, I'm not a huge Woody Marks fan, but
I think understand the move, but it does tell you something.
I think that tells you that they know that the cliff is coming.
Yeah. I mean, I think they got him off the Bengals for a 7th-round pick. I mean, he seems like a rental to begin with.
Yep.
At that age. Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, we're going to come back to the running backs in a little bit, but Matt, let's talk about a couple of receivers that we are just completely fading in all dynasty leagues, including a very, very highly drafted 2nd-round pick from last year. We'll get to Keon Coleman next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to win the NBA championship. If you believe so, go check out the futures market over on FanDuel. They are the favorites by far right now. But they have all sorts of different odds available, series lines. Go check it out. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We're discussing the handful of players that we're just completely out on in Dynasty leagues. And Matt, I was walking around my local mall today, just hanging out. Keon Coleman jerseys everywhere. Like, it's just so clear that everybody in this area believes that Keon Coleman is going to take a big step in year 2, but you're not buying it.
Mixed feelings. I almost didn't put him on the list because I hate to write guys off too early. My concern with him is I don't think he's real sudden of a player. And my bigger concern is I think the Bills are a great organization, and I want to be tied to Josh Allen any way humanly possible, of course. But I feel like they're just collecting slot receivers and making them play outside. I think he's a big slot. I think he's Marquise Colston. You know what I mean? Like a slower, big-bodied rebounder out of the slot that doesn't do well against press man coverage. And they already have those guys. You know, Shakir's that dude. I think they traded for Amari Cooper because they wanted a true X. And I think that they're asking him to do that. And I don't know about his role.
Here's the issue for me.
Okay.
I don't think Keon Coleman's very good. I mean,
yeah.
I
think
didn't
it has
like
to be
him
used a certain way.
Yeah,
you know?
When they drafted him at the top of the second round, I think they were hoping he could be this big body X receiver, and he's just not that. He's not
that. Yeah.
He's not a precise route runner. He's not a good athlete. Like, he ran in the 4.6s, and you see it on tape. Like, he just does not have
a
lot
build
of
up speed.
Right.
Yeah.
So his game is based on 50-50 catches, and I don't think he's like Dallas Cowboy great George Pickens. Like, I don't think he's amazing in these, contested catch situations.
He's not
George
special,
Pickens.
right?
No.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think he's a slot receiver, but the Bills just paid Khalil Shakir, and he's a slot only. And why would you ever take off Khalil Shakir off the field? Because I think Shakir's just a much, much better player.
That's kind of my point, is they have too many slots, so that makes him play outside, and that's not what he does. And they're an in-it-to-win-it organization. I mentioned the Cooper trade. Could they trade for somebody else that is a true X, and then all of a sudden he's fading away and he's fourth on the depth chart? And heck, I'd take a shot at Elijah Moore at a really, really cheap price. But I think they're counting on Coleman to do stuff he's not really equipped to do.
Well, I'm looking at Dynasty League football right now. Jack Besh, the receiver that the Raiders took in the second round from TCU, he's going to be a full-time slot receiver in Las Vegas. And I like Coleman's tape better than Besh. But the fact that Besh is just going to get every opportunity to play inside and play in the slot just makes me feel better about him. So I would much prefer him in Dynasty Leagues. Even with the price dropping for Coleman, it just hasn't gotten to a place where I feel intrigued to go get him.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't love him coming out, so I didn't own him in any of the rookie drafts, and I'm not inquiring to add him in any way, shape, or form. If he comes up in a trade talk, I always avoid it and go to another player. And maybe I'll regret it. I mean, I do see some ability there, rebounder, the basketball background, and some of his Michigan State tape was pretty good, but someone else can have him.
Let's talk about a couple other receivers. I want to mention Devontae Smith, who is wide receiver 20 right now. Devontae Smith is an awesome player. Like, he is a really, really good NFL player. This is where we have to separate the NFL player from the dynasty asset. I just don't know in this Philadelphia offense with A.J. Brown, who's going to be there a while. They clearly want to run the ball. Jalen Hurts is so good in short yardage in the goal line. I just don't know how much of a ceiling is there for a receiver that's the number 2 passing option in a pretty low volume passing offense. I would much prefer somebody like Rome Odunze, who's wide receiver 22, 4 years younger, and we just think is going to throw the ball a lot more.
I almost put him on the list too, but I guess one of my strengths and weaknesses of a dynasty owner is real life football. Like, I have a hard time putting bad football players in good situations higher on the list, because I think they'll eventually come to earth. And the opposite's true. Like in this case, really good football player, like you mentioned, in really a terrible situation, even though it's the best team in the league, because he's the second option in a non-passing offense. And you get in the fourth quarter and they're up by 10 and they just choke teams out on the ground. There's just not the pie is so small in the passing game, and I don't see it changing.
No, and we're already, I don't want to say we're at the zenith of his career, but we kind of are. I think he's going into his age 27 season. He's not going to be the number 1 target on this offense anytime soon. And what's the ceiling here for him as like a number 2? It's probably 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. Probably
right.
7
like you
touchdowns.
need the Bengals offense to deal with 2 big time receivers, and this is a total polar opposite.
Which is why I would just much prefer another receiver who is either the number 1 on their offense. I'll give you an example. Zay Flowers, who's being drafted as wide receiver 23.
Also a run heavy team.
Run heavy team, right? They're not going to throw the ball a lot, But he's the only receiver on that offense that I want, right? Like Rashad Bateman's a nice player, but he's a clear wide receiver too. Hopkins is old. At least that's the guy you can bank on getting 7-8 targets every week.
I agree. I'd rather have Flowers than Smith, and probably not in the real world, but that doesn't matter. Right.
Let's go to Tyreek Hill, somebody that you wanted to talk about. Wide receiver 28. So the price has dropped a ton over the last 12 months. Are you in at wide receiver 28?
Well, no. I still think I'm in on Waddle. I think Waddle's set up to have a really good year. And I know Tyreek's injuries last year weren't ankles and knees and things like that. And he's not slow or anything like that. But I don't know that he's the cheetah anymore. It was even 2 years ago, he had even talked about retirement. I only got 3 years left or whatever. I think Miami in general worries me. I don't like the way they're built. I think that their offense has been figured out a little bit. And all the off the field stuff, I mean, I just think he's too volatile for me to be involved with. Maybe he gets traded, but I don't know if that's good. How many traded receivers do well? And he's getting up in age, you know?
Yeah, he's 31 at this point. It just seems like there is a lot going on with Tyreek Hill.
Exactly.
There's the other part of this, and I don't know how much you factor in that. I generally want to have players on my team that I like to root for. Now, the values have got to line up a little bit, but if I have the opportunity to draft, like I love DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf is a lot of fun to watch. DK Metcalf, wide receiver 29, Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 28. Just give me Metcalf. Like at that point, I don't care about the value. I just would much rather watch DK Metcalf than root for Tyreek Hill.
I guess I'm a cold, heartless.
That's okay. There's a lot of people that play that way. I want fantasy.
I totally detach it. Okay, they could be beating up grandmas, but if they're scoring points, I'm keeping them. You know, I mean, they don't know I own them. You know, I don't tell anybody that. That doesn't bother me.
But there is part of me that I like rooting for certain players, and maybe I'll overvalue them a little bit to make sure they're on my team. But at the end of the day, you're trying to win your dynasty league. So I get it as well.
I understand both sides of that coin too. You know, like if it's a despicable human being and you don't want them on anything to do with them or help them in your money or help you in any way, I understand that 100%. I just don't have any ethics when it comes to that stuff. I don't care.
All right, let's talk about some rookie running backs and a couple Cleveland Browns that Matt Williamson, former employee of the Browns, is
coincidence,
is fading this offseason. We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. So, Matt, you had a couple Cleveland Browns that you wanted to talk about today that you're out on.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily an indictment on the player. It's Jerry Jeudy and it's Judkins. And Jeudy was a much better football player last year, especially as the season went on, than he had been anywhere in Denver. You know, I thought he was more flash than substance in Denver, and I kind of thought when the Browns traded for him, like, you're buying a shiny object that you're not really getting the value for. But he got a lot better. But it's still a 1-year situation for him.
And a lot of those numbers came with Jameis when he was just slinging.
That's what I was going to say. Like, are they going to have a sling it all over the place quarterback? I frankly just don't trust the organization at all, and for a couple reasons. The obvious one is what's going on at quarterback. I mean, there's 4 mouths to feed there at quarterback, or 4 people competing in some way, shape, or form. But my biggest concern is, frankly, I think it's a poor organization, and history shows they'll hire anybody. But I think
that's not true.
But the reality is, I don't think that they recognize, and I don't know how much we've had this conversation, so I've talked about it a bazillion times since the draft, that them not drafting an offensive lineman to me is the most criminal thing that happened in the entire draft. You trade down, you get all these picks, presumably to get the quarterback of the future, and you're drafting 2 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, an off the ball linebacker, You didn't get an edge player opposite Garrett in an edge-rich draft. And the reason that you were playing well there for a while, the Nick Chubb era, was you had a really good line. And that line's deteriorating rapidly. They have 4 of them are free agents after the year, and they did nothing. Like, I don't think they recognize that the backbone of the team should be the O-line, and that backbone is just a mess right now. So that's why I'm out on Judkins, too. I like Judkins as a player, but I don't think that the offense is going to be very functional for the next year or two, even if they find their quarterback next year.
So I understand the Judy stuff because
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a pretty low volume passing attack this year. I think they're going to want to run the ball, which is actually why I'm in on Judkins. So I'm going to fight back on this one. Judkins is one of my favorite players to get in dynasty leagues right now because I think Stefanski is going to really lean on the run game, whether it's Joe Flacco at quarterback or 2 rookies, Gabriel or Sanders. It feels like they're really going to try to run the ball. And I understand the offensive line concerns. Now, they had a lot of bad luck with injuries last year between Daewon getting hurt. But you look at their starters, it's a pretty good offensive line on paper. Now, I think the depth issues is where maybe we can talk about it, whether or not you can trust Daewon Jones to stay on the field. Although I did see
age is starting to worry me. Age and durability.
They're getting older. But man, Wyatt Teller is still a really good
player.
Still good, yeah. So part of me thinks, if they can just have a little bit of regression to the mean in terms of injury luck, maybe this will be a better run offense than we think. And Kevin Stefanski is going to be back to designing the offense, calling the plays. We've seen this offense be really good when he's the one calling shots, whether it's Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I think
I certainly trust him and his offensive mind. I kind of don't trust his bosses.
I agree with that. Part of me thinks that this team is going to really be able to run the ball, and that's how they're going to try to win. So they're going to try to win games 17-14 all season long, and maybe that just means that Judkins is getting 17, 18 touches out of the gate.
And the other thing I wanted to say about Judkins, which also isn't his fault, is I wonder what the wear and tear is going to be by the time they're good again. I can't imagine them being good this year or next year. Then are we looking at a guy that's had 600 touches and is he's got a hammy. He's got I could see him really getting the ball a lot and getting beat up.
Oh, so like Breece Hall, who's RB,
kind of like Breece Hall, right? Bad team that all right. Yeah, it's a great call.
Judkins is I believe in the talent. I thought Judkins was the better of the 2 Ohio State running backs. I kind of want to be in on him because I do trust Stefanski. But you're right. There's that organization in the front office. There's just not a lot of faith there for me. So I get it. I wanted to talk about another running back that I think people have gotten mad because of RJ Harvey getting drafted in the 2nd round by the Broncos. Sean Payton, yes, he loved him. He talked about him being the Joker. But I thought kind of coming into the draft that he was a 3rd, 4th round talent. This is somebody who was a former quarterback, who had 2 ACL tears. He's 24. He's 5'8". I like RJ Harvey. But if you look at Sean Payton's history with the Saints, or even go back with the Cowboys, he loves running back by committees. Even when he had Darren Sproles and Mark Ingram and Pierre Thomas, he would rotate these guys all the time. RJ Harvey being drafted at 56 overall in startup drafts right now is a little too rich for me. He is currently RB 16.
I 100% agree with everything you said there, too. I don't think he's a special player. I think the Broncos overdrafted him. I do think he'll probably have a good rookie year. It's funny, what I almost put on this list of what I'm avoiding, for whatever reason, in 3 of my 6 dynasty leagues, I ended up, I didn't always earn it, the 1.07 pick in rookie drafts.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to trade it every time, because I don't really want Judkins. I don't really want Henderson, Ibuka, Harvey. That whole neighborhood of rookie drafts to me is I'd either like to move back, turn it into a future first, or get in the top 4,
Yep. So James Cook and RJ Harvey have about the same ADP right now in dynasty leagues. I don't get it. They're almost the same age. James Cook has been way healthier. He's on a better offense right now. I still think Buffalo's going to lock him up. Yeah, I think he's just a better player.
Yeah, that shocks me that they're that close. Harvey's a really good one then.
It's just he's going to get touches. There's going to be splash plays, but it's going to be really annoying when in week 3, Jaleel McLaughlin gets 11 carries in a game, or Audric Estime is getting the 2 rushing
trotting
touchdowns
it at the goal line, right?
because this is
Right.
what Sean Payton does, and this is
Yeah.
he spreads the ball around. It's just really hard to trust any one running back week to week, even on those teams that had Drew Brees. It was really hard to figure out which week was going to be Darren Sproles and which week was going to be Mark Ingram and which one was going to be Pierre Thomas.
Yeah, that's a good point. And there's been a couple of examples of that. Like they're all usable, but they're hard to count on.
They're hard to count on.
Yeah.
All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every single day. Make sure you tune into tomorrow's show when we discuss our favorite deep Dynasty stashes, including a Dallas Cowboy quarterback. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Yeah, I know. Well, Joe Milton love. Go follow Matt on Twitter at Williamson NFL. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.